I do know we have some massive recruiting weekends. We kind of talked about this recruiting weekend coming up with Felix Ojo, which is a big one. I think he just got the number one tackle, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I
I think
think
number 4 player overall too, nationally, yeah. But yeah, no, he's right up there, 5-star for sure.
value's climbing for sure. So we got a big weekend this coming up,
Yeah.
some monster weekend. So let's talk about the recruiting weekend though first, separately, and some big people to watch out for that'll be there.
Yeah, I mean, we can start with Felix Ojo. I think obviously with him being a 5-star offensive tackle, I mean, near at the very top of the board. And I think overall with Florida, yeah, there's ground to make up. But even it just getting him on campus for the Orange and Blue game was a big step in the right direction. This is a kid dealing with Texas, Ohio State, Michigan. The list goes on and on. But Jonathan DeCoster, he was heavy in pursuit with him for months and months. Got rewarded that first visit, and even after we spoke to him, then it kind of still felt like a long shot. We still didn't know if he was going to take an OV. And this weekend, really, you can almost it started with him because I think Florida traditionally doesn't have OV weekends at this time of year. And I think you kind of have to kind of bend your rules a little bit when it comes to an elite talent like that. So I think when they looked at Ojo's schedule, he was already filled up all throughout the summer. He's going to announce before the season goes. So Florida's like, hey, if we're going to get this guy on campus, we have to kind of adjust our schedule and change things. They're able to get him on campus for this weekend. And then ever since that happened, it ended up being a pretty massive recruiting weekend. I know right now it's kind of a long shot with a lot of these kids on the list, but it's a very heavy loaded one. And I think overall, when you look at Ojo, I think the main thing Florida is selling him on is obviously early playing time. They're telling him, hey, you can be a day one guy. And I know with Florida replacing several starters, that opportunity will be there. I mean, it's unlike me. You don't see too many offensive linemen play, at least start the year out as a true freshman, but he is one of those elite type of talents. But I think right now, Florida, I mean, Texas is a school training heavily. I think obviously that's a school you got to look at. I think another guy we're talking about, Chauncey Kennan at Sarasota Booker, one of the top cornerbacks in the country. Florida, he last visited this spring. Before that, it was a season opener versus Miami. And ever since then, Florida was kind of not mentioned much. Will Harris, when he was on staff, was in communication. Billy Napier visited him at school. But really, Florida's surge with him has really been Deron Wilson. Once they got him on campus this spring, Florida made his top 6. Then we're able to get an OV for this weekend. And, Deron Wilson spent about 6 to 7 hours at his school not too long ago. So that really made a big impression on that kid's camp. I think he's kind of one of the dark horse guys on this list. I think later in the year, I mean, you look at Georgia, LSU, Miami, FSU, schools like that, you probably have to give them the edge over Florida at this point. But I think after this weekend, Florida could really kind of make their move. I know, Florida, he's been to Florida many times. It's really about just getting closer to Wilson, and that's going in the right direction. I think another guy we can really talk about is Kelvin Russell, too. I know you guys are probably familiar with him, 6'6" receiver on Miami Northwestern.
Mm.
Same school from that they got Javari Flowers out of, so there is some familiarity there. 6'6", it's a guy, Billy Gonzalez loves those big body wide receivers. He fits that mold. And I think overall, Syracuse has been the school trending. I know his mother, if I'm not mistaken, went to Miami and played a sport there. But he doesn't seem like a kid that's kind of like made in Dade, stay in Dade type kid. A kid that's definitely going to go to Miami. I think, in my opinion, he's the one guy that's probably not getting spoken about too much right now that I think Florida can make a big move for after this weekend. The kid's elite. I know he even has basketball offers, Power 4 offers. So 6'6". When you kind of wrap up this list, though, I mean, it's a very heavy loaded list as far as talent, a lot of national All-American type guys. Florida's probably trailing for a lot of them, but I think when Florida gets kids on campus, they're one of the better schools when it comes to OVs. They do a good job of really going from A to Z, impressing the family as well. So we'll see where it all kind of goes from there.
That's good news to hear. We're going to break this up in a couple segments, but I do remember you and I talking about this Felix visit and the fact that this was not originally an official visit weekend. It starts next week and then rolls for 3. And you talked
Yep.
about they're going to make some moves for it. It sounds like they're taking advantage of the move and having some more and doing a full month of official visits, which is I love it. I think that's great, especially where Florida
Yep.
sits right now. People are panicking of where Florida is sitting currently in this recruiting. You just mentioned there's a lot of trend and a lot of buzz for the guys that are visiting, and we do seem to close out well. Settle the tone a little bit if we can for where Florida sits currently. Are you panicking in the outlook for this recruiting class?
I mean, it's not ideal. I mean,
Okay.
definitely, I'll kind of say that. I mean, having one commit, I know a lot of people keep mentioning USC, but that's kind of a weird situation. I mean, you never see schools at this time of year having over 25 commitments. This is
Yeah.
kind of in
They
USC
lost with it
traditionally. I
already.
mean,
They lost with to Rocket Money, one of our sponsors for today's show. You sign up for something, forget about it after the trial period ends, then you're charged month after month after month. The subscriptions are there, but you're not using them. In fact, I just learned that 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused each month. Thanks to Rocket Money, I can see all my subscriptions in one place and cancel the ones I'm not using anymore. And now I'm saving money. Listen, y'all know we love Rocket Money here at Hightop Sports. We talk about them quite oftenly for a handful of reasons. Number one, because you're able to monitor your subscriptions. Number two, which I always love, is that you can cancel your subscriptions through the app, which is fantastic versus having to log in, see which app it is. You see it all in one place and you can click it through the app and they will handle the dirty work for you. Thirdly, which again is what also my favorite features is their little personal account. You can set up budgets for how you want to spend things with that certain month, whether it be shopping, whether it be movies, whether it be entertainment, all those things you can separate your little personal accountant in the palm of your hand to allow you to save more money and put more money back in your pocket. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find your cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and saved a total of 500 million on canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions to reach your financial goals faster with rocketmoney.com. Go to rocketmoney.com/hightopsports today. rocketmoney.com/hightopsports today. The link is in the description for rocketmoney.com/hightopsports today.
yeah, I mean, you kind of see how they kind of go throughout the year too during the fall. I'm not gonna say they fall apart, but a lot of time you'll see them kind of go through a lot of decommitments. Hilton Stubbs comes to mind last year. They have a lot of guys that end up committing early and decommitting. But I think with Florida, yeah, I mean, I think the other thing you have to remember too, Florida did have almost about a handful committed at one time. I mean, Jalen Waters was committed, but Will Harris leaves. That was because of that. I mean, we can talk all day and night about Isaiah Williams. I mean, that recruitment deserves its own show at this point. Um, so, I mean, getting him, I mean, even that was kind of strange. I mean, I thought honestly he would have stayed committed a little bit longer. And once I saw his IG get wiped full of everything, it was like him and Ole Miss. I'm like, okay, here we go. It's like we're about to have another, chapter five. So that obviously was something we had to talk about. And then Devin Jackson, I know he decommitted, but that's like one thing. He always kind of wanted to take a bunch of OVs. He was kind of hinting at maybe reopening his recruitment. It's not often when you get a guy back in the class after decommitting, but you saw it last cycle with Joseph Mbachu, the defensive lineman. Florida's done it before, and I think Devin Jackson, there is a good chance he ends up back in the class. He wanted to take these OVs as an uncommitted recruit. But no, man, it's not ideal. But the one thing I would say though, when you get through spring, you're so close to OV season, and when you're at a big school like Florida, you're competing for a lot of high level kids, obviously, and that means NIL. A lot of big things that come into play, and kids want to decide before the season. So you get through the spring, and they're like, "Man, I could commit, but damn, I'm about to take my OVs in like 3 weeks." Yeah, I mean, like, why not just wait a little bit longer so I can compare these schools? So Florida, in my opinion, kind of fell in the mix where just the timing of it sucked. I mean? Obviously, you wish you had Isaiah Williams. Some guys committed, but you get there. I'll say this though: I thought they would have gotten more guys on their list as far as from spring commitments. I thought maybe like 2 to 3.
Yeah.
But then you get to May, it's like, man, these kids start OVs as early as this weekend. So it's obviously not ideal, but I think by the time the end of the summer hits and we're about to go in the season, I think Florida's list is going to pick up pretty good. It's almost, I'm not going to compare it to like the end of last cycle when they just went on a run and got all these guys before sign day. But Florida is one of those schools. You saw it a few cycles ago in the summer. I think it was 2 or 3 cycles ago. They got a few commitments. It was just a huge train of them,
It's
just
like
back to
8 within
back. And
like
I
2
think this year
days.
it
It
could
was
be
a
similar.
blast. It's a good time.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I mean, I remember I was at I was going to one of my friends, John Garcia, the National Recruiting House. I was at his baby shower with my wife, and I remember all those kids, 4 of them in one day, I believe. And thank God I had all of them written ahead of time, so I was just publishing on the go. But I remember I was in Fort Lauderdale for a party, and I was like, God damn, this is going to be a crazy day. And you saw Florida just pick up all this momentum. So I think maybe it's not going to be as strong, but I think overall they're going to have. I think by the end of the summer, people will kind of have a different look on it.
That's why I keep trying to preach of like it's way too soon to panic, and I think that was a good way of a good point out too of it's bad timing. Like these guys are about to
Yeah.
set for official business. There's no need for me to commit. And so after June, July, going into the season, I think Florida has to be in a better place. I don't think the expectation to have a hard, hot run like they did last year is a real expectation. I don't want to do that. That's where I'll panic. This fan base loves to panic. They did it with baseball, and baseball's finding its rhythm. They did it with basketball. It's what we do. We love to. The sky is falling. That's just kind of
Yep.
how it rolls. What are you gonna say, Dave?
We do as we're speaking, we have a new OV added to the list. Because if you see me looking down at the same time, Blake's texting me. He's like, "Hey man, you see this OV?" I'm like trying to look at the same time.
Breaking news.
Hakeem Ogaboko, 6'6", 285 pound offensive lineman, top 100 prospect overall out of South Gardner, Gardner, North Carolina. A guy that really I know Florida got in on early, but really, I mean, you want to put up as far as the biggest surprise of the weekend, probably him. We haven't talked about him in a good long time. So yeah, that's a national kid. Georgia, Clemson. I mean, right now Notre Dame, Bama, Georgia, Clemson are the OV schedule. Now Florida, and that goes back to the Felix Ojo thing. You say, hey, we're going to get this kind of campus. I mean, shit, let's just make this a huge weekend. Let's capitalize on it. So a lot of these kids, when you look at the list, and we'll talk about more. I know, like we said, there's other guys we can talk about, Justice Fitzpatrick, other ones, but a lot of big names. I mean, it's Florida has huge weekends coming up, but if you want to look at just the star power, you kind of almost have to put this weekend maybe above those because it's an elite group and it obviously keeps being bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and what's funny about it too is like we were sitting at 76th, I think, last year, and it was pretty late into the recruiting cycle, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah, I
guys just
remember
kept
that.
rolling in. Yeah, and now I think they flipped or they reclassified Javari Flowers and bumped the high school
Yeah.
class up to number 7, or I think number 8 in the On3 industry rankings. I can't remember. I think it was 8. Um, but you talk about the relationships with the parents, and I think that's where Billy Napier really hits it out of the park. And we've had
Mm.
many parents on this show. We've interviewed Aiden Mazel's dad, Waltez Clark's dad. And we're trying to get on other ones too to just get a little bit more insight on some of these visits and how the coaching staff relates to these parents when they're on those trips. And it seems
Mhm.
that's where Billy Napier's strength is with the parents and the relationships with those parents. And I think that's what really helps him in this recruiting and helps him close it out towards the end. And we know now that Billy Napier and the staff, they don't really recruit early as much anymore. And I think they wait till the end to really try to get some momentum going because this NIL world's crazy. So would you rather have somebody commit really early, have like a number 3 class like we did 2 or 3 cycles ago, writing all these articles and then it all fall apart at the end? I think Billy kind of learned from that a little bit and he said, okay, well, let's kind of like take this a little bit more slow. And, he's always the slow and methodical guy anyway, but take it a little bit more slower and see maybe if we can get some of these guys rolling in towards the end of the cycle and maybe counteract some of these, maybe it's an NIL deal, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's something, and then get them in the mix and possibly flip.
Well, that's 100% too. I mean, you see how that Florida operates in the portal. I think there's a lot of guys you'll see as time goes on. You're like seeing all these schools offer. You're like, come on, like Florida, like why are they not offering? And maybe they do offer, but they're very strategic when it comes to this stuff. I mean, and the good thing almost one thing I respect about Florida. They don't get influenced by a lot of schools where you see a Florida State, Miami, like a USC all offer in one day. I mean, you'll see it here and there, but they don't feel pressured like, okay, now we have to offer, and they stick by their evaluations. I mean, Hayden Hanson's a guy when they signed him. I mean, who's he? Now I'm kind of blank. Was he committed to Louisiana? But either way, he was committed. He was not even a power 4 guy, and you see him in person. The dude's like almost 6'8", 6'7", a guy that they've developed pretty well. I mean, obviously the Jake Slars of the world. I mean, Bryce Lovett comes to mind. There's a lot of guys. Florida just really sticks with their evaluations. And I know he set that in the last cycle too. Lagonze Hayward was a guy that he even said when the sign day press conference, he's like, we wish we would have got some of these guys early on. But I think the one thing with Florida, they don't back off kids at all. They might finish second or third, and you might not hear about those kids for a while because they're committed to other schools. But Florida quietly kind of keeps putting in the work. And yeah, I mean, you saw it last year with Woods, the edge just signed, when he flipped from Penn State. He loved Florida all along. He just didn't know Florida how they're going to do on the field and if the staff was going to be there. And it took that one OV weekend to change his mind. So I think and then look what happened when they announced when Napier was staying. That's when the landslide really started to happen with all these recruits. I think everyone always believed in Napier. And going back to what you said, Dave, about the parents, that's the one thing you hear from a lot of these kids. Like, hey, what do you like about Florida most? I try to always say when I interview these kids, I'm like, hey, put it all in the one. What makes Florida that one of those top contenders for you? And one of the first things they always say is culture and environment. So I think they have that going for them. And I think this weekend, Like Kelvin Russell's one. We were speaking to his mom earlier this week, and you could tell she has a really good bond with the staff. She's like, "No, we're really excited about this trip." And he's a kid that doesn't do many interviews, but I think this weekend, that's why he's one of the guys I could see Florida really vault up his list.